Hi everybody, I'm Pia from Stitches and Scraps.
Today I'm going to show you how to sew an invisible mattress stitch seam along two side edges of crochet. This is actually not two separate pieces, it's a tube, but it's the same thing. It's like two separate pieces on the sides here. So I'm just sewing that side closed. So the first thing I'm going to do is line this up. Now I have 4 row sections in this pattern, and I'm going to place some stitch markers with where each section starts and stops so that I can line that up so that the sections will line up next to each other. So that is my first spot that I'm lining up, and I'm going to stick a stitch marker in there. Now after I get to this stitch marker, I'll stop and I'll move it to the next section. You can do all of them at once if you want, but this way I just need to find one stitch marker. Okay, so I'm going to get into the corner first because I'm not quite in the corner yet. There we go. So the general gist with mattress stitch is you're going to go in the same direction on both sides of the fabric. So I can look at this as going from the outside to the inside edge or going from right to left, however I want to look at it. I'm going to go that same way every time I take a stitch. One thing that I notice with my own stitching, I don't know if it holds true for yours as well, is that when I do a seam, I tend to take lots of very tiny stitches very close together. That actually makes your seam bulkier. If you look at the stitches within your fabric, especially with a bulky yarn like this, they're only connected at the top and the bottom. The rest of this is open and loose, right? So try to keep your seam the same way, only connected at the top and the bottom of each row. So this is already connected at this edge of the row. So I'm going to start going here, okay? And then I'll do one here. And that gives me the top of that row. Get that loop right there. There we go, right there. Now I'm not pulling it very tight because I'm going to pull it all tight at the end to reveal. Okay, so that was like the top of that row. Let's get the top of this row. Let's go into this loop here. And let's try this loop here. Okay, see how much gap I'm leaving? It's okay to leave a bit of a gap. Okay, then this loop here. And this loop here. And then finally, to end off at my stitch marker, I'll go to this loop here. So now I've got this section sewn together, right? Now watch what happens. You see these stitches here, it's kind of a zigzag back and forth, right? Watch what happens when I pull that. I'm going to take out the stitch marker and I'm going to pull it nice and tight. So there's your zigzag, right? And now I'm going to pull it nice and tight and look at that. That line goes straight and all the stitches just kind of butt up against each other on either side of it. So you have this nice seamless look across. Now I'm going to pick my next section here. These are 4 row sections alternating between a textured section and a half double crochet section. So I'm kind of reading my work to see where I changed into that textured stitch, and that gives me each section here. Your work may be different. You can just space stitch markers across evenly, you know, whatever you're working on. But the gist is to get even sections lined up so that you can make sure your seam is nice and even. So now I've got right here connected, and I last came through the front piece. So now I'm going to go through the back piece, right? Oh, not like that, right? That would be like a whip stitch. Always from outside to inside. Same direction on both. If I was going inside to outside, that would be fine, but I'd have to go in the same direction on both. So now let's get this one. So this is a great stitch for a finishing edge where you can't get to the wrong side of your fabric, like on a stuffed object. Like this is going to be a pillow, and when I do the other edge, I'm going to have the pillow form stuffed in it, so I won't be able to get to the inside. But I want my edges to match, so I'm using a mattress stitch worked from the right side of the fabric on both edges. pull that. And there we go, a beautiful, practically invisible seam all the way through. And you'd want to space it out. You don't want to get it gathered. If you pull too much, you'll get it gather like that. So you want to space it out, make sure it's nice and open, and then weave in your end. And of course, we're on the right side of the fabric, so weave in your end very carefully. I'm going to actually stuff this with the pillow and then come back and show you the same seam on the other side. Okay, I've inserted my pillow form, I've woven in all my ends, and I'm ready to do the final seam on this project. So I'm going to do that same mattress stitch seam I've been showing you. Now I really do need the stitch marker because the pillow makes everything a little bit wonky and not even. So I have 4 stitch markers in so far. That's all I had on me. I need a couple more, but I'll move some of these after we do this beginning section. So my tail is sort of coming out of that back side, so I'm going to start on the front. And this time I'm going to show you the other way, because I said you could do either way, right? Before I was going from the outside edge to the inside, now I'm going to go from the inside to the outside. I'll show you either way works just fine. As long as you are consistently doing the same thing on both sides. So now I'm going from inside to outside on both sides. Remove this marker. And I'll pull this tight, and you can see there I've got the same zigzag, right? Because I was going in the same direction both sides. So when I pull that tight, it still does the same thing. So you can choose whichever's more comfortable for you, going outside to in or inside out. Just be consistent on both sides. So as I'm doing this, I'm kind of looking for those loops that are more towards the inside of the fabric. So rather than this loop here, I'm going to choose this loop here. And that just helps to hide the stitching even better. And that brings me to the end. Now this time I've gone pretty much the whole seam without actually cinching specifically. I just kind of made my stitches sort of tight. So I'm going to now pull this gently and ease that across until the seam is nice and firm but without gathering. So if I see little bubbles here, I scrunched it all up. I pulled till it scrunched up, and then I'm going to ease it back out from this end across so that there's no gathers, but I know that that seam is nice and tight. Then I can weave in my end and we'll be all done. And that is how you sew a nearly invisible mattress stitch seam with the side edges of 2 pieces of crochet fabric. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, share it with your friends, or leave me a comment. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel for more great videos. Thanks for watching!